Nope, she set the boundary with you, or they set the boundary with you, he set the boundary with you. We're done. We're gonna go over there and eat some pie. Goodbye. Talk to you later. Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for coming back if you've been here before, or hi, welcome if you're new. My name's Mickey, I'm a therapist, and we talk about therapist-y things on this channel. Today, we are talking about the 3 types of boundaries that I think everybody needs over the holidays, because there is a lot of conversation and discourse about boundaries, but I think sometimes it can feel really unrelatable and like not approachable for folks. So I want to break things down into like varying levels of difficulty so that we can empower people to be setting boundaries in whatever way works best for them. So I have talked about this before on TikTok briefly. Follow me on TikTok, by the way, if you don't already. And also don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because we talk about educational stuff, but also like fun entertainment stuff. So I'd love to have you stay. But I've talked about this briefly before on TikTok and on Instagram a little bit, and I wanted to dive deeper into this and give more details. So we're going to start with the lower end of the spectrum in terms of difficulty and move up from there so that hopefully, again, folks can sort of pick and choose what works for you. So starting on the easy end of things, sometimes simple is better. And so this is a conversation that I have with my clients all the time. Just say no. I know that that sounds simple, and it's sometimes easier said than it is done. However, protecting our yes by saying no is a really vital piece of boundary setting. And I want to talk about how saying no doesn't always have to mean verbally saying the word no. And that's why this is included in like the easier level of boundary setting. I personally am very much a fan of boundary setting without explanation, because another one of the things that I say to my clients all the time is that you don't owe anybody a fucking explanation about your boundaries. You can offer that explanation if you want to, but no one is entitled to it necessarily. You are allowed to make decisions and to set limits around your time, your attention, your peace, your presence at certain events without having to justify why you're allowed to do that, particularly if you're an adult. Sometimes this looks like simply not responding to messages or phone calls or requests for attention and things like that. But in like face-to-face interactions, sometimes this just looks like silence. I really want to encourage people to give themselves permission to remove themselves from situations that are uncomfortable for you, either like directly or like physically or indirectly, in a more figurative sense. The other thing about this that I encourage my clients to do all the time is to give yourself permission to just like nope the fuck out of situations that are uncomfy for you. Again, because you don't have to always set boundaries by doing this very authoritative and assertive communication of like, this is why I'm choosing to do this and it makes me uncomfortable, and so that's why I'm going to go ahead. Like, you don't have to do all that. You can if you want to and you feel comfortable to, but I also recognize that that's not always a feasible option for all people, particularly during a time of the year where people are really committed to these social norms of like happy family fun time and the dinners and the parties and the things. It can feel really uncomfy to be sitting at the dinner table with parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and neighbors and people, and try to have this very authoritative exchange with someone who's pushing your buttons, or they won't stop talking about your body, or asking you when you're gonna have kids, or talking about your stupid job. Like, that's all very overwhelming sometimes. And so if boundary setting for you looks like saying, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom, or I forgot something in my car, or I'm gonna go take a smoke break, who wants to come, or whatever, that's allowed. I think sometimes therapists get stuck in this thought process that boundary setting should always look a particular way, and I want to clarify that it doesn't have to. We all have to start somewhere on the boundary spectrum, and so if that for you looks like just a blank stare when someone asks you when you're going to have kids or why you aren't married yet, that's allowed. We can also use that to capitalize on other people's social discomfort, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But generally, if boundary setting for you right now, the most feasible way to do that is by just saying nothing, or choosing to not show up to things that don't bring you joy, or faking explosive diarrhea so that you can get out of a really uncomfy situation, that's okay and that's allowed. The other thing about this that I wanted to encourage folks to incorporate is what I call the buddy system. I'm sure that there's like a real name for this, but this is what I call it. If you have a safe person that is going to accompany you to these particular events, or like holiday things, like a spouse, a sibling, a best friend, a neighbor, an aunt, uncle, whoever, that's like super close to you that you really feel safe with and that you trust with that level of disclosure, communicate with them beforehand. This is the thing when I sit and like disaster plan with clients before they go do holiday things. We sit and almost put together like an action plan for how to deal with particular people or a situation that might come up, conversations that might be difficult, things like that. The buddy system is relatively simple in that we want to first identify the person, figure out who your safe person is, and second, communicate beforehand about a signal. My safe person at all of my holiday events is my husband. husband. And so he and I have this shared understanding that if either one of us gives each other like the face, need help. So we're sending up the red flags. Somebody come save me. Come tell me that you need my help with something. Come tell me that you need to talk to me. Come do something. Get me out of this fucking situation, please, God. The thing about this that's important to communicate beforehand, or the reason that this is important to communicate beforehand, is because it's really awkward and uncomfy to try and send a text under the table, or God forbid you give the eyes and they go, hey, what's wrong? Do you need me to come get you? Mortifying, humiliating. Don't do that. Communicating beforehand, like, hey, on the down low, I need you to come help me if we do this, is really helpful, and can also like give people, I think, a level of calmness before we go into these things, because you have an exit strategy in your back pocket should you need it. Moving up to the sort of mid-level of boundary setting, use your words. I know that this again sounds very simple, but it's sometimes very effective to communicate simply and concisely, I don't want to talk about that. I tend to sit with clients and talk through like particular phrases or words that might feel comfortable for the purpose of making an example. Again, I want to be clear, this channel is for education and entertainment purposes. I'm not your therapist. I can't therapize you over the internet. However, this is just for the sake of making an example. Phrases like, I don't want to talk about that, or it hurts my feelings when you say that. That topic's not up for debate, or I'd rather talk about something else, so let's just move on. That's a sensitive issue. I don't want to talk about it, or I don't want to talk about that with you. These are all phrases that we can use to sort of communicate like clearly and concisely without being rude, without making a scene. Nope. Not talking about that. That's another phrase that you can use. Just nope, I don't want to talk about that. I really want to empower folks to use whatever language and vernacular like feels comfortable and feels authentic for you. But in this level of difficulty, we can sometimes get caught up with trying again to like justify or reason why we're doing this. And I really want to simplify things. You don't have to. It is okay to just voice the boundary that like, I don't want to talk about that. That's a boundary in and of itself, and it doesn't have to be like a big or scary thing. It can feel scary very much. I want to validate that, but it doesn't have to be like this big production of a thing. You can just simply say like, nope. Anyways, and start talking about something else. The other thing about this that I want to encourage folks to remember is that you don't have to wait for a response. Boundary setting is not a question. We're not asking for permission to set the boundary. You are saying, I'm not talking about that. Anyways, I had this thing happen at work the other day, and just move right along, just breeze right past, because again, we can get caught up in this thing of like feeling guilty and feeling unjustified. You are justified. You don't have to feel guilty. You're not doing anything wrong by trying to protect your peace. Also included in this category are like natural consequences, or like enforcing the natural consequences of other people's shitty behavior. What I mean by this is that oftentimes boundary setting, ideally in like the sort of most self-actualized or like most developed way, includes incorporating a consequence for when people violate our boundaries. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but in this category, because it can feel very overwhelming and kind of scary to voice, if you do X, then I'm going to do Y. Sometimes enforcing those natural consequences is more approachable. So this might look like not pretending to be unbothered and happy-go-lucky when someone says something shitty to you. We oftentimes get sucked into this expectation that holidays in particular are supposed to be this time where we're all like, like doing the Hallmark movie thing. And you can do that if you want to, especially if that keeps you safe. That's your prerogative and that's allowed. However, if someone says something to you and you really don't like it and you've tried to voice before, I don't want to talk about this, and then keep fucking pushing your buttons, sometimes allowing people to see the natural consequences of that behavior is a very powerful vehicle to enforce that boundary. My sinuses are fucked up. I do want to be clear though, this one can be potentially not safe with people who are unsafe. So I want to encourage you to read context, honor your own specific situation here. This won't be an ideal outcome or an ideal intervention with all people, particularly if someone's being malicious. This works more effectively with folks who are well-meaning but still saying hurtful shit. Like grandma asking why you're not having kids, someone making a joke about their own diet, for example. Any number of issues that are sensitive or difficult to discuss for a person. Someone who's well-meaning but like accidentally pushing your buttons, enforcing these natural consequences can be, again, a powerful vehicle to get that point across that like, I'm not joking. I'm not asking out of a sense of preference. Like I'm asking or enforcing this boundary because it is hurtful. And sometimes showing folks that is more effective. This can also include really blatant or like blunt statements about our emotions. So saying, hearing you talk about your diet makes me feel like shit about my body. This can also include like physically recoiling from people who are trying to touch you without your consent. Again, these are things that can be seen as sort of like socially uncouth, but I want to encourage people to unburden themselves of this expectation if it allows you to set the boundary. Moving up from there to like advanced level boundary setting, this is for people who feel very comfortable advocating for themselves and have probably ideally practice in setting boundaries with others. This is where we're going to see all of the pieces of boundary setting come together, in that we're clearly communicating, this is a boundary that I have. If you violate this boundary, I'm going to respond with X, and we're communicating that ahead of time, or like, consciously in the moment when these things are happening. This might look like explaining to someone, you talking about my body makes me uncomfortable and I'm not going to have this conversation with you. If you bring it up again, I'm going to leave the room. If you bring it up again, I'm going to hang up on this phone call, or, leave this holiday event altogether, things like that. Also in this category are, again, like more bold things to say. Yes, I do. Again, I very much want to encourage people to give themselves permission to not force themselves to abide by social norms for the sake of preserving this like big happy family event when it comes at your own detriment. Because oftentimes folks who are committed to violating boundaries, or people who are like serial boundary violators, can either intentionally or accidentally rely on people's commitment to social norms to allow them to violate boundaries. What I mean by this is, like, for example, someone saying something negative about your parenting. Let's say like a grandparent speaking negatively about your ability to parent your own children and saying, back in my day, we used to hit kids or whatever, right? There's usually this expectation that in saying something like that, which is hurtful, someone won't upset the peace at family dinner by saying like, hey, that's actually a really hurtful thing to say, or like, that's actually really shitty. Please don't say that, because if you keep talking like that, you're not going to get to spend time around my children. It's kind of a bold thing to say at a family dinner, or like at a holiday thing or whatever. And so sometimes, again, people bank on this expectation that they can say out of pocket shit and you won't respond. And if it's safe for you to do that and you feel comfortable doing that, I do want to encourage people to give themselves permission to do that. Like, you are allowed to protect yourself and advocate for yourself, regardless of whether it is in line with social norms or not. Because again, particularly for people who are serial boundary violators, there is this expectation that like rules for everyone else, but not for me, right? And that's not fair, but also can get us locked in this behavior pattern where we're trying to be the bigger person. We're trying to be committed to social norms, or like wrestling with these boundary violations on two different playing fields that can sometimes very much feel like a losing battle. And if cutting contact altogether isn't a realistic option for you, having to immerse yourself in this environment where you feel like you can't ever say anything, you can't ever do anything, is really overwhelming and can start to wear on a person over time. So again, all the way up at the higher end of boundary setting, we do have like cutting contact permanently, removing someone from our life for the foreseeable future. That's very much allowed. Again, you're not rude or mean for protecting your peace and telling people you don't deserve access to my life and you're not entitled to relationship with me. However, this isn't always a realistic option. Along with that, I want to encourage people to stop fucking saying this to people. It's not realistic always, or feasible to just like simply cut out someone cold turkey. And sometimes people don't want to too. And that's also a valid decision. You are allowed to make those boundary setting decisions for yourself based on your own circumstances. And so if you want to maintain contact with someone, but you're still very much uncomfortable with the way that they're interacting with you, give yourself permission to be blunt and open and fully honest about, this is my boundary, this is the impact of you violating that boundary, and this is what I'm going to do if you do it again. This can also be a good place to incorporate the buddy system for what it's worth, because setting boundaries in this like more advanced level way can feel kind of intimidating. So having someone who's on your team to say like, nope, she set the boundary with you, or they set the boundary with you, he set the boundary with you, we're done. We're going to go over there and eat some pie. Goodbye. Talk to you later. It can be really impactful and helpful. So again, encouragement to lean on your safe people and incorporate them in this conversation. I know that the holidays can be really fun for some people, and they can also be pretty fucking brutal for folks, particularly those of us who have toxic family systems. So I want to send so much love and all of this support. Please know also that you're not alone. Therapists, it's not by coincidence that therapists are the busiest during the holiday season. It's a shitty time for a lot of people. So if this is you, please know that you're seen, you're valid, and you are very much allowed to set the boundaries in whatever way works for you. My goal is for this channel to be a safe place for folks like us. And so again, feel free to like lean on each other for support in a way that's safe and respectful, please. But generally, if you like the video, like the video. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. Click the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already, because we make content like this and other like pop culture stuff. So I'd love to have you stay. And share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. And I will see you guys next Saturday.